Hey everybody, today we are debating Christianity versus atheism, and we're starting right now. Glad to have you here, everybody. Very excited as we have two gentlemen facing off for the first time. We have the man that has become, sorry I introduce you like this every time, Josh, notorious on Twitter for his trolling and barbaric methods. So we are happy to have Joshua Brister back, as well as TJump, who just had a big debate, and I'm sure he's going to have a lot of other future big debates, as both of these guys are skilled in debate and well-read. So with that, we're going to quick check out the upcoming debate this Monday, what we are especially excited about, as for the first time, Kent Hovind and Dr. Cy Gart will face off in a debate on whether or not science and religion are at war. A lot of you have said, hey, we want a Christian to represent the old earth position. We've never had one. And so this is my hopeful answer to your request, for those of you who have asked for it, is that Cy Gart is a Christian and an old earth Christian, and he and Dr. Hovind are, or Kent Hovind, I know there's controversy over the fact that his, well, we'll talk about that another time, but Kent Hovind, Cy Gart, very exciting. Now, for today's debate, very pumped. The debaters' links are down in the description. See down there? See, like I go peek down there and see them and like almost grab down. So we're glad to have them here. You can check out their channels. And last, if you're new here, want to say, hey, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you back. We've got a lot of debates coming up, very exciting ones. And whether you're a Christian, atheist, we want to know, we're glad you're here. So it doesn't matter what side you're on or whether you're one of the many strange creatures in between. We just want intellectual, ideological diversity. And so having you could say, a mix of people that interact is, I think, good for us. We kind of learn new perspectives, and it keeps us sharp in terms of not getting into that group think where you have everybody just kind of agree with you. And moreover, I can't help but express my thankfulness for the debaters, as they share kind of the highlights of their reading, you could say. And so that's the hope, is that this channel will also kind of be about vicarious learning, where people get to hear the strongest arguments that people have distilled down from their hours and hours and hours of reading. And with that, we will introduce the debaters. So first is Joshua Brister, as mentioned, Mr. Notorious. Let's call him Mr. Incendiary. Josh, glad you're here. If you want to share what you've been up to at your channel, we will give you about 30 to 60 seconds to share what you've been up to, whether it be on your channel, Twitter, organization, blog, anything like that. I know you mentioned a paper that you might want me to share, so Josh, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, you can call me the best if you want to call me anything at all. I did do a paper when I was being mentored by Dr. Gary Habermas. I did a paper on miracles in their plausibility. I worked with probability calculus in the historical method. You can check that out. It should be on the in one of the links. But I really appreciate being here. I thank you, and I thank Tom.
Radical. Thank you very much, Josh. And TJump, glad to have you back. And Tom, I got to tell you folks, Tom is always ready to jump into a debate. Doesn't matter what it is. He's like, oh yeah, I'll take it. So glad to have you here, Tom. And as mentioned, both of their links are in the description. Tom, what have you been up to at your channel?
Not much recently. I've just been sick, lazing around in bed mostly for the past like week and a half. So, but normally I do debates like these, so I enjoy them.
You bet. Well, we hope you feel better, and I'm sure that Tom's going to have many more debates on his channel, and so you can check that out. In fact, I think, Tom, is it fair to say you have like primarily almost all your videos are debates?
Usually they're conversations, not usually debates. I just do debates on your channel, so but they're close.
You bet. Yeah, you can say civil discourse. We use the word debate pretty loosely around here, so want you to know about that channel, as we really want you to just know about where all the debates are happening. Doesn't matter if they're on modern day debate or not, we're happy to have you here, but if they're on another channel, we want to let you know about it so you can check those out as well. Next, we're going to start this debate with a 12-minute opening statement from Joshua Brister. TJump is willing to do a very quick abbreviated opening. He doesn't really, basically, I screwed up. I didn't communicate well in terms of opening statements, and so Tom was kind of like, "Hey, I'll just improvise," because he my fault. He thought it was going to be a civil discourse where they just kind of jump into informal dialogue for the whole time, and so sorry about that. But Tom was a major team player, willing to do kind of a improvised opening statement that won't be quite 12 minutes, and so we're happy to have that. Then it's just right into the open discussion. By the way, Paul Quantum Whales, I think I recognize you, buddy. I saw that somebody banned you. One of our mods banned you. Really sorry. I don't know who it was, but I'm bringing the hammer down on the mods because I'm like, gosh, you guys, why do you freaking keep banning people? We don't, basically the rules here, I'll go over a couple of rules really quick because I always forget to. The only way that mods should ban anybody is if they like use explicit like hate speech. If they use like the N-word, yeah, ban them. But otherwise, you really shouldn't be banning or timing people out or deleting their messages unless it's hate speech. So with that, also want to mention, if you have a question during the debate, just put an @ModernDayDebate in the comment section. That'll let me know that it's a question for one of the speakers, and that way I can scoop it out, put it into our list. And if you have something more other than a question, like a comment from one of the debaters, we offer a super chat as well. So if you want to do super chat, you can fire it into there, and basically I'll see that, and we read super chats first. And as mentioned, super chats don't have to be questions; they can be comments. So with that, very excited. I'm starting the timer. And Josh, if you want to go into full screen mode, I know that you had said you have what's the word I'm looking for? You have a PowerPoint.
Yes.
So we are going to set up Josh's. It's coming. I'm pulling in the source. So we have Josh's PowerPoint being set up at the moment, and so basically we're going to have, as mentioned, a 12-minute opening for Josh in which he shares this, and then we will have Tom give his opening. And Josh, you are set to go with your PowerPoint. So on your first word, I'll start the timer, Josh.
Man, writes Lorne Isley, is the cosmic orphan. He is the only creature in the universe who asks why. Other animals have instincts to guide them, but man has learned to ask questions. Who am I? He asks. Why am I here? Where am I going? Now, according to Aristotle, philosophy begins with a sense of wonder about the world, and the most profound question a man can ask concerns the very origin of the universe. Aristotle begins his metaphysics with a statement: all men by nature desire to know. An indication of this is the delight we take in our senses, for even apart from their usefulness, they are loved for themselves. And above all others, the sense of sight. We Christians study apologetics. We tackle false doctrines. We tackle false philosophy, as it says in the book of Colossians 2:8. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the basic principles of the world rather than of Christ. This is the time we are taking this back. I want to mention a couple articles a couple arguments by C.S. Lewis, a lived life type argument. Premise one: if we have needs and desires that this world can't answer or provide, then we probably aren't made for this world. Premise two: we have needs and desires that this world can't answer and provide. Premise three: we aren't made for this world. This was in Mere Christianity. In another of his books, Surprised by Joy, here's another argument. Premise one: every natural innate desire has an object that can fulfill it. Premise two: human beings have a natural innate desire for immortality. Therefore, premise three: there must be an immortal life after death. Alvin Plantinga, in many of his books, Warranted Christian Belief, God in Other Minds, he has argued that there are properly basic beliefs. Among these are the existence of God. We don't have to give any argument for the existence of God. God is a living reality to us, and so is other minds and our own existence, the external world. And by the way, a tiger defecating on Tom Jump's books. We could know that by the perception that they bring us. Like others, John Calvin, the sensus divinitatis, we have this written on our hearts and minds, where we know intuitively that God does exist. Time magazine wrote a provocative article in April 8th, 1966, in questioning whether God was dead. But just 14 years later, in Time magazine, on April 7, 1980, a remarkable change took place. Let me quote from the article. Is God coming back to life? In a quiet revolution in thought and argument that hardly anybody could ever see only 2 decades ago, God making a comeback. Most intriguingly, it is happening not among theologians or ordinary believers, but in the crisp intellectual cycle of academic philosophers, where the consensus has long banished the Almighty from faithful discourse. Quentin Smith has said similar things. Here's something from Quentin Smith. He said, God is not dead in academia. He returned to life in the late 1960s, and is now alive and well in his last academic stronghold, philosophy departments. Christian theism rises. I want to read another quote by Quentin Smith. Naturalism passively watched as realist versions of theism began to sweep through the philosophical community, until today perhaps 1/4 or 1/3 of philosophy professors are theists, with most being Orthodox Christians in philosophy. It became almost overnight academically respectable to argue for theism, making philosophy a favored field of entry for the most intellectual and talented theists entering academia today. There is a revolution going on, and I wonder if Tom is aware of it. Common sense strikes back. You could get a good look at a bad argument by sticking your head up a bull's ass, or you could just look at David Hume's word. You could just take David Hume's word for it. Now, I'm going to be discussing David Hume a lot during this presentation. Thomas Reid, a philosopher from the 18th century of common sense, the Scottish common sense philosophy. This is what he says. We see then that Mr. Hume's philosophy is very much like a hobby horse, which a man, when he is ill, can keep at home with him and ride to his contentment. But just in case he should bring it to the marketplace, his friends would quickly impanel a jury and confiscate his estates, and have the solicitude never to leave him alone again. This skepticism is unwarranted and unlivable, and we're going to see, here's a lot of books that go over this. Some from William James, some from Daniel Robinson. This is a quote from Bertrand Russell. Whoever wishes to become a philosopher must learn not to be frightened by absurdities. As you can see on this timeline, David Hume is concurrent with this Scottish Common Sense School with Thomas Reid. Thomas Reid thought things a lot differently than the skeptical Hume. Conjectures and theory of the creation of man, and will always be found unlike the creatures of God. If we would know the path of God, we must consult themselves with humility, without daring to add anything of ours to what they declare. A just interpretation of nature is the only sound in orthodox philosophy. Whatever we add to our own is apocryphal and has no authority. Here is his famous An Inquiry with the Human Mind, who David Hume read and could not answer. This is Thomas Reid's philosophy. As you can see, it's direct realism. We can know things in the external world by first-person perspective, by the introspective perspective. Reid's answer to Hume's skepticism and naturalistic arguments was to enumerate a set of principles of common sense which constitute the foundations of rational thought. For Reid, just as we can trust our cognitive abilities to reliably perceive our own innate thoughts and can comprehend our own mental capacities, we can also likewise trust our sensory perceptions to give us reliable information about the external world. Now, Reid and other skeptical philosophers had something called the ideal theory, which said the ideas are mere representations in the mind. We should not do that. The simplest explanation, Tom, is direct realism. Trusting our innate intuitions about causality. This is what David Hume said in 1754 to his friend John Stuart. But allow me to tell you that I never asserted so absurd a proposition as that anything might arise without a cause. I only maintain that our certainty of the falsehood of any of that proposition proceeds neither from intuition nor demonstration, but from another source. You see, in real life, he doesn't doubt causality. He doesn't doubt any of these things. Neither should you, Tom. J.M. Mackie, the famous atheist, he confessed, still, this causal principle has some plausibility in that it is constantly confirmed in our experience. He also used reasonably, reasonably in interpreting our experience. That was in Mackie's famous The Miracle of Theism. There are a few different types of explanation. I think you really need to pay attention here, Tom. Scientific explanations versus personal explanations. Just because we can give a scientific explanation of our mental thoughts, that doesn't mean we can't have a personal explanation. Just think of water boiling or a car not starting. Are we gonna really explain that to somebody by talking in the realm of physics and in laws and what is happening at that level? Or are we going to simply say something is wrong with the car, or I put water on the kettle to boil a pot of tea? You see, there are different kinds of explanations, and you can't rule out a priori ahead of time any of these. If you do, you're having faith in something called meta-epistemological skepticism, which is it's a wrong track to take. If you leave open the very possibility that God could exist, you have to look at the evidence. Number two, right here, the universe requires an immaterial cause because all space, matter, and time came into existence at the Big Bang. You can't have a scientific explanation of the beginning of the universe. You can either have either an abstract object starting the universe or an unembodied mind. But here's the problem, Tom. Abstract objects don't stand in causal relationships. So you have to postulate as the best explanation an unembodied mind, even though you yourself may not have experienced it. It's the only option there.
Got a 1 minute
warning. This is what falsifies pantheism: necessity and sufficient conditions. The cause of the universe must also be personal. If a necessary and sufficient condition for the production of an effect are eternal, then why is not the effect eternal? How can all causal conditions sufficient for the production of the effect be changelessly existent, and yet the effect not also be existent along with the cause? How can the cause timelessly exist, but the effect be temporal? Here's the answer, Tom. Pantheism is false. God must be personal to bring about a temporal effect from a necessary state of sufficient and necessary conditions.
Time.
I'll consider since that's the simplest explanation. Thank you very much.
Next. So thank you very much for that, Josh. And now we will return to the dialogue mode. So very excited to move into Tom's opening as well. So appreciate that clear opening, Josh. And as always, we expect a clear opening from Tom. So we appreciate you both being here. And Tom, I will start the clock on your first word.
All right, I'm an atheist, by which I mean there is no reason, evidence, or argument that indicate the existence of a God. The reason we can show this is like if you have a box and you believe there is a rabbit in the box, and you claim that the argument or the evidence to indicate the rabbit is the fact that the box weighs 2 pounds. We can know this isn't evidence of a rabbit because it can equally be explained by many other things, like a coffee mug or a weight or a lizard or all these other things. So if any of the arguments presented to indicate the existence of God can work equally as well for a non-God alternative like pantheism, they're not evidence of the existence of God. So I would like to ask Joshua which one of his arguments you'd like to start with. Which argument do you think most refutes pantheism?
I think that one that I gave, the last one that I gave, necessary and sufficient conditions when I was reading that last slide.
Okay, so the argument is that the Big Bang can't be caused by natural things. It has to be something spaceless, timeless, immaterial. Is that essentially it?
It has to be something personal for an effect to arise from a timeless and changeless state of affairs. Otherwise, there would never be an effect. If the cause is timeless and changeless, why isn't the effect timeless and changeless? Pantheism can't account for that.
Well, okay, we can't actually account for that. There is a theory in physics by Nima Arkani Hammad that space and time are emergent from a more natural fundamental property. He's an atheist, so we can't actually account for that naturalism.
Is that the consensus, though, Tom?
Is that the consensus? No, it's hypothetical. It's a theory.
Well, I can give hypotheticals all day, Tom.
Right, so but we can account for it. So it is possible to account for it. You can't just say it's impossible. So we have a physics theory in physics that's published and supported by academic journals that it is actually possible to support this with purely natural things. So you can't then argue that it can't be done.
Okay, granted. It's possible that the moon is made out of cheese, Tom, but it's not likely.
Just to make sure I'm not misunderstanding, Tom, you said that you're ready to go into open discussion?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Just checking. Okay, go ahead.
So most physicists are atheists, so they're actually
say you
more
about
towards...
what I
Josh, you got to let
What?
Tom finish.
I think he was asking you a question, right?
Sorry.
Okay.
So my position, most physicists are atheists. So most physicists reject this idea that you need some kind of consciousness to create the universe. It's just not really an accepted position. Most physicists either go with like the multiverse, the cyclic universe, string theory. None of them go with, there's a very small percentage of physicists who go with the mind. So the consensus in physics is not the argument that you're going for. One way to argue, if you want to say that space and time couldn't come about from purely natural causes, well, we actually have physics theories that do exactly that. So the consensus is that your position is not correct and not supported.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. The consensus is that the universe began to exist. Now, it's the theist who has a ready explanation for why it began to exist. They've always said that God is the reason, the sufficient reason, or the cause behind the universe. I was actually going to use both arguments and a number of others if I would have got to them. So it seems like it is plausible that we can say that that the universe began to exist. Here's the atheist reply, from what I understand it. The atheist reply is it just arose by magic?
Well, no, it arose by other physics, because all of these physics theories, like the multiverse, the cyclic universe, Nima Arkani Hammad's model, all of those are just different combinations of the math used in principles, particles, and laws in physics. So they're all just different combinations of stuff in the field of physics. Whereas there's no physics principle for like a being or an all-powerful thing or a necessary thing. Those aren't physics. So all of these things I'm presenting have a basis in physics, whereas yours does not have a basis in physics.
Physics was put in at the initial cosmological singularity, and I have a plethora of quotes from Paul Davies, Vilenkin, the Borg-Vilenkin, a number of others, Christopher Isham, the British physicist, so many that would say otherwise. They don't speculate on that.
So Stephen Hawking actually disproved the singularity hypothesis. He was actually the one that presented it in his doctoral thesis, and then he disproved it later.
We don't use imaginary time. He
right?
uses imaginary
That's a different theory.
Which makes
theory.
sense, like the square root of -1, Tom.
That's a different theory. That's not related to his refutation of the singularity hypothesis. So that's a different thing.
Okay. Well, what's the consensus show? That there was a singularity. Do you concur?
No, no, that was refuted by Hawking.
No, no. In fact, in his new book on a brief, not a brief history of time, on the nature of space and time, he says now almost everybody believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang.
Yes, the consensus is that our universe had a beginning,
Don.
but the beginning isn't the same thing as a singularity. It's not; those are two different things. A singularity is a focal point where all time and space are compressed into an exact single point of, I don't know, the singularity. And that part was disproved.
Have you?
So those are two different theories. The Big Bang and singularity are not the same.
Yeah, I know that you keep saying that, but it's not. Have you read a book by Big Bang Theism, Atheism, and Big Bang Cosmology by Quentin Smith and William Lane Craig? I think it came out.
I don't think so. One sec, I'm trying to find the Hawking quote where he specifically says that.
Quentin Smith says, at least if you're if you're an atheist, you must believe that the universe came from nothing and by nothing. That's Quentin Smith. He's one of the top atheist philosophers.
Well, I'd say he's wrong. I don't agree with his assertion.
All right.
So for my example, pantheism is just an eternal, necessary, all-powerful nature. So I can say that nature is eternal and our universe came as an expression of this eternal nature, kind of like the multiverse theory. Our universe can have a beginning, no problem. But there can still just be more eternal nature behind that. So the Big Bang only indicates that our universe has a beginning, not all time and space. Our time and space.
Here's the argument that I gave against pantheism. Pantheism, hold on, let me ask you a question first. Do you believe that pantheism is all is God and God is all? Or what would the definition of pantheism be?
No, I'm going with naturalistic pantheism. So that's just nature is all, essentially. So I'm applying the godlike properties to it.
So nature has no agental powers. Would you concur with that?
Agent, yes. No, it does not have any agency or consciousness. I wasn't sure. Agental. Caught me off guard by that.
Yeah, so here's what I said. I specifically said this in my slide on causal explanations, 3 types, and the third one was necessary and sufficient conditions. The cause of the universe must be personal. And here's the argument. If the necessary and sufficient conditions of the for the production of the effect are eternal, then why is not the effect eternal? How can all the causal conditions be sufficient for the production of the effect be changelessly existent, and yet the effect not be existent along with the cause? And lastly, how can the cause timelessly exist, but the effect be temporal? And it seems if there is no agental powers or capacities from your pantheistic, naturalistic hypothesis, then you must go with a personal agent that wills an effect from eternity. Or you believe in magic. How does that not falsify pantheism?
Because I just don't accept pretty much anything you just said. I was having a hard time following that. So there can be an eternal part of nature we haven't discovered yet, and that eternal part of nature created the temporal part that we find now. So there, like you mentioned, Hawking's imaginary time. There can be different kinds of time. So the time and space that began that occupy our universe is only one kind of time and space. So there could be other kinds of time and space. So the fact that something has a temporal status isn't a problem.
Are you speculating and thus going against the consensus? Because it seems like it.
No. Again, the consensus in physics is not that you need a god or a mind or anything. This is just a minority position in the philosophy of religion. Most philosophers reject that. Most physicists reject that. The consensus is completely that you're wrong.
Well, I think you're trying to convince yourself of that, Tom. The physicists don't they're not theologians. I've talked to some of them. I talked to Valenkin also, and see if he concurred what Craig said about his quotations in his debate with Lawrence Krauss. I don't got any of those quotes, any of those emails with me, but he said, yeah, all the evidence we have is that the universe.
You cut out. You still there?
Did I just hit something, James?
I still hear you, but it's much more faint. So,
Okay.
I think, there you go. That's a little better.
I wanted to say one more thing, Tom. Occam's razor would say that we should not multiply causes beyond necessity, but have the right amount of causes to bring about the effect. The argument
Right.
that I gave.
I would agree with that.
You
I would
need,
agree with that, but I would say that if you're
some cause to bring the effect about, if the cause is eternally present, but the effect is temporal, then why is it temporal, Tom?
because the cause
Why isn't
created
the
time.
universe eternal?
Well, parts of the universe or parts of nature are eternal. But if you create time, create a dimension of time, then it's going to have a temporal beginning, and everything in that space-time is going to be temporal. So it's like if you create a kind of time and put stuff into that kind of time, then it's going to have a temporal beginning. I mean, that's
Alright.
like the multiverse theory just says that the eternal inflation. It's the eternal inflation theory. So the inflation is eternal, even though our universe had a temporal beginning and is temporal. The eternal inflation is eternal. So there's not a problem with that in physics.
You're trying to explain away the absolute beginning of the universe by arguing for the multiverse. Now, that's not the simplest explanation because we don't have any evidence for these bubble universes, but we do have evidence of the beginning of our universe. So it
Right,
seems to
but
me
that-
that the consensus. That's what it seems to me.
Well, the consensus is, I'm pretty sure, on my side, since like 75% of philosophers are atheists and like 80% of physicists are, or something like that. But just to go with your point here, you said the simplest explanation. I agree, we should go with the simplest explanation. And an all-powerful being who can create infinitely many multiverses is infinitely less simple than just asserting the multiverse. So the multiverse would be simpler than a God hypothesis at this point.
But,
And that's
but
just
the
one of
evidence
as many.
that hits our. But Tom, the evidence that hits our perceptions from the direct realism that Thomas Reid was talking about is that we only experience one universe. The evidence points that there's only one universe. So it seems to me that you're using an ad hoc reasoning to postulate many universes because a single universe coming into being, it smacks you of theology. I think you're being theologically biased here.
Well, I kind of agree with you because I'm using your own argument here. I'm saying the universe had a beginning, or our universe had a beginning. And if you want an explanation for that, you could say it's an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving being, or you could say it's just an all-powerful nature, like a multiverse or something. And the all-powerful multiverse thing is simpler than the God hypothesis because God has lots of these other properties and create many, many multiverses.
No. My argument was that with necessity and sufficient conditions, the cause of the universe must be personal. That was a defeater, a rebutting defeater against your view of pantheism, naturalistic pantheism. That in philosophy, there's not that many knockdown arguments, but I do think that this is a knockdown argument because pantheism doesn't have any gentle powers to bring about a temporal effect from a timeless and changeless state of affairs that which our universe would have been.
Right, and I'm saying that pretty much everyone in physics and science rejects that hypothesis. That's just asserted nonsense from most theists. I apologize, I didn't mean to be insulting there, but it's not an accepted premise. I mean, most scientists, most physicists are naturalists, and the mind is essentially, or consciousness and agency are products of physical interactions. You can't have a mind without temporal time and space, because minds can only exist within time and space. So there isn't any support at all for this idea that the universe can't come about unless there's a mind. It's totally ad hoc from the perspective of most philosophers and physicists, who are actually the experts in this topic.
Yeah. Hold on one second. I'm trying to. Would it be possible, Tom, that I pull up my slides and we debate the various things that I have back and forth?
Where we can try, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to be prepared on that, since I haven't researched any of those specific.
I'm trying to. I feel like I'm illiterate right now because I cannot find the link. This is kind of embarrassing. There it is. Sorry. So I can go ahead screen share, and we could go into my arguments and we'll go back and forth. Would that be okay?
Ready.
Sure, go for it. I don't care.
Okay. Okay. As you can see, this is one of my arguments that I was going to discuss. Of course, I didn't manage my time well. Maybe I just had too many slides. My fault. But for Limnes.
Yeah, we're not seeing your. Oh, there it is.
Oh,
we do see a slide.
Okay. Okay. By Limnes, premise one.
Leibniz.
Everything that exists has an explanation of its existence, either in the necessity of its own nature or in an eternal cause. The universe has an explanation of its existence. That explanation is an external, transcendent, personal cause. Premise 3, the universe exists. Premise 4, for the explanation of the existence of the universe is an external, transcendent, personal cause. Now, what don't you think is correct here?
Well, I can just remove the personal cause. There's no need for a personal cause at all. I can grant premise 1, everything that exists has an explanation of existence or whatever. And I can just say there is a necessary property that is a part of a nature that we just haven't discovered yet. So pantheism can be the necessary cause of nature.
That's a speculation.
Hold on. Well, let's
right,
let him
it's
finish.
an assertion. It's an assertion, just like you assert God has this property. I can just assert nature has this property. It's just an unsupported assertion on both counts. We can both make up answers. The atheist position is that we don't know what caused the universe, but the theist is making up an answer. So the atheist can just mirror your answer and just make up an answer in the opposite direction.
Now, okay. Now, if you do believe that the universe began to exist, or observable universe at least, and I could give you Vilenkin and others who said all
I
these
grant
other
that.
theories.
I agree.
Okay, then you're gonna say that the universe did not have to begin to exist, right? Because there was nothing else. So if you believe that, you're gonna say it's contingent.
No, I'm not saying there was nothing else.
Either it popped into existence.
So again, I'm saying the universe,
what else could
our universe is just one universe. Our universe had a beginning, our one universe. There could be other universes that did not have a beginning. There could be a multiverse that did not have a beginning.
Yeah.
So our universe having a beginning isn't the problem. The personal thing, which I reject, and most physicists reject, and most philosophers reject.
Necessary conditions like a law could never produce a temporal effect. I don't think it was very plausible. The universe began to exist.
Because it did.
See, this is the Achilles heel.
There's no problem here. There's no problem. You haven't pointed out a problem. Where's the problem here? What is the problem you're trying to point out? There's no problem with saying the universe has a finite beginning.
Okay. Let's go back to the slide. If the necessary and sufficient conditions for the production of the effect are eternal, then why is not the effect also eternal? How can all the causal conditions sufficient for the production of the effect be changelessly existing, and yet the effect not also be existent alongside with the cause? See, our experience shows that the effect is temporal. Unless you say it just popped out of it into existence out of nothing and by nothing, by magic, then you're gonna need a cause powerful enough to bring the effect into existence.
Right, I'm agreeing with that. I agree with that.
Eternal.
I'm just saying it's not personal. It's not a theistic necessary powerful cause. It's a naturalistic necessary powerful cause called naturalistic pantheism. So just take the God, remove the consciousness. You can get everything we see around us just fine.
Pantheism, the pantheistic naturalistic understanding of God doesn't have any potentialities to bring about a temporal effect. You see,
that just seems to be like an assertion that you've made up. Like I don't agree with that. I can't hear you.
Yeah, Josh, it's being a little bit choppy with your internet service or something, Josh, just to let you know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with that. I put down my argument for why I think it falsifies pantheism. I don't really think what you said is plausible, but I want us to move on in this debate.
You bet. Okay. If you're done with the screen share, Josh, are you done with the screen share by chance?
I think he's going to go to other arguments.
Oh, okay. You bet.
Yeah. I mean, would that be okay?
Yeah, it's
go
okay,
for
Tom.
Okay. One cosmological argument formulated by Al-Hazali. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Again, this is one of those common sense arguments. Not being skeptical. You don't be skeptical of any of these premises. So why would you doubt any of these premises?
I wouldn't. I would agree with all of them. I'd just say the cause is necessary pantheism, not necessary theism.
Okay. Well, why is the universe non-eternal? Why is it temporal then?
It wouldn't need to be. There's absolutely no reason why it would need to be. It has a beginning. There's no problem with this with pantheism. There's no contradiction here at all.
The evidence shows that it's temporal, and when you shrink down the universe...
No, I'm agreeing with you. That's not a problem. This is not a problem for pantheism. There's no problem here.
Isn't that a common sense argument for theism and over pantheism, because pantheism doesn't have the potentialities to produce an effect in time?
No, because you're just asserting it doesn't have the potentialities, which is just a made-up property. There's no potentiality law of nature. There's no potentiality feature of reality. That's just an asserted property just came up with in, I think it was Anselm or Aquinas' mind. You'd have to actually show that property corresponds to reality. It isn't just something in his head.
Well, okay. Let's see if it corresponds to reality. Do you have any potentialities to do anything, to bring about an effect?
Well, it's kind of like saying I'm a bachelor. I'm an unmarried man. It's just a made-up definition. So sure. But doesn't correspond to reality. It's just a linguistic definition. I can't hear you anymore. You're really quiet.
Josh, it's hard to hear you, buddy.
I'm saying is, you will to raise your arm and bring about an effect.
Sure, and you can define that as potentiality, but it's just a made-up definition, like defining an unmarried man as a bachelor. It's not a quality of reality. It's an arbitrary language definition that we apply to it.
Well, Thomas Reid discusses this also in his Inquiry into the Human Mind. He says artificial language would have no meaning whatsoever if it can point or signify some kind of natural language. So there's no reason to be skeptical of our languages, that they can't correspond to reality, because they signify something. They're pointers.
I agree. They can correspond to reality, but they don't necessarily respond to reality. Like I can say there is a square circle. That does not correspond to reality. I can say there is a married bachelor. That does not correspond to reality. So you can't just assume. You have to actually demonstrate that what you're saying does correspond to reality. It isn't just one of the imaginary things, like a bachelor.
Okay, I can assume or say that the universe, that the moon is not made out of cheese. Of course, I can't prove that, but it's a commonsensical notion, and it's a commonsensical notion on these premises that you need a gentle power to bring about a temporal effect. In the pantheism God. Pantheistic naturalism doesn't have that potentiality, and you concurred with that.
No, I can grant those three premises of the Kalam. The potentiality and actuality are just made up properties to me. They mean nothing. They're like saying, I don't know, a bachelor or a married man. They're just human inventions that have nothing to do with reality at all. And this is something that most philosophers and most physicists agree upon. We don't grant Anselm's distinction between these two things. They're not something that corresponds to reality to most philosophers and most physicists. It's just an arbitrary definition, kind of like Hume rejected causality. Most people don't agree with Hume and don't reject causality. It's just Hume's way of doing things. Or the analytic-synthetic distinction by Kant. Like, many people do not agree with the analytic-synthetic distinction. It's just something he made up. So there's lots of distinctions we can make up, and the potentiality and actuality is just one of those distinctions somebody made up that we have no reason to believe corresponds to reality.
Well, it seems to me that if we have good evidence that the universe is temporal and not eternal, we can say it's contingent, that everything in it is contingent, and the whole universe, since it began to exist, is not the necessary thing. But for there to be for there to be contingent beings, it seems plausible and reasonable and speak to our common sense notions of reality, that there must underlie some necessary cause that holds everything together. What say you? Can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I agree with everything you just said. I just say the necessary cause isn't theism. The necessary cause is pantheism. And can you?
Well,
you're getting quieter.
Again, we're back to the beginning of the universe.
Josh, we need you.
Which is not a problem for pantheism. The beginning of the universe is not a problem for pantheism.
Let's see about that. I think I gave an argument for that right here for necessary and sufficient conditions. If the necessary and sufficient conditions for the production of the effect are eternal, then why is not the effect eternal?
There's no problem with that. That's not an issue with pantheism. I mean, this is your own issue, your own problem that doesn't have anything to do with pantheism. Like, scientists don't have a problem with saying there is an eternal inflation that caused our finite universe. No one has a problem with this.
See, you're speculating now on multiverse without any evidence.
You're breaking up again.
You're speculating to explain away.
You're still breaking up.
I think what we'll probably do is move to Q&A.
You're speculating to get around the evidence.
Josh, it's really hard to hear you, buddy. I'm sorry. I think it might be a little bit easier if we go to Q&A, just because it'll be kind of it'll be, in a way, it'll be like the talking will be divided amongst us three. I think it's more of the internet, like maybe a connection issue. It's sometimes it drops.
I'll respond to what he just said. Like, as I said, physicists can present eternal models of nature, like the eternal inflation and the multiverse and string theory, and have no problem explaining a finite universe. Like, this is not an issue in physics. There's no problem. There's no contradiction between those two.
I do want to get this to Tom first. Here's what I was talking about when I was talking about Alexander Vilenkin. First of all,
Lord Vilenkin, I'm familiar.
Well, the anthropy principle by John Barr and Frank Tipler, who I met when I was in college. It is said that an argument is what convinces a reasonable man, and the proof is what takes it to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide beyond the possibility of a past universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning, and that is evidence that the universe is contingent.
Right, I agree it's contingent. I just don't agree that the cause is a god. The cause could be naturalistic pantheism. And like 2 paragraphs later, I think in that exact same book, Vilenkin goes on to say that this does little to support the theist position.
He's not a theologian.
I know. And so just to clarify, when he says this, he's not supporting theism, which he says like 2 paragraphs later.
They're getting out of their domain. According to Blanken, none of these scenarios, the inflation theory, the cyclical theory, can actually be past eternal. He concludes all the evidence we have says that the universe had a beginning. There are no models of that at that time that provides a satisfactory model for our universe without a beginning. All this is common sense to show that the universe is finite and requires that something is eternal behind the universe. Now,
right, and I'm agreeing with all of that. I'm just saying it's not a god, it's just naturalistic pantheism. And also there are people, lots and lots of physicists who reject that. Sean Carroll argues that that's wrong. There's the imaginary time theory. Hawking argued that was wrong. There's Susskind argued that's wrong. Ellen Guth specifically said, one of the other authors said that the BGV does not show that there's a beginning to the universe. It shows that there's a beginning to inflation. It's a quote from Ellen Guth.
All right, I think what we're going to do, Josh, is it's definitely cutting out, and so I gave you a shot, but the internet is kind of, something's going on again where we can't quite hear you. So given that we just gave Tom the last word, and given that you had started, I think it's a good time to move into the Q&A. So with that, we do have a lot of great questions, and we're going to switch back over to the dialogue box. And next, I want to say, anybody, if you have extra questions, if you just shoot them into the comment section or the live chat and put an @ModernDayDebate, that'll let us know that it's a question for one of the debaters, and you can just let me know who it's for, and I will ask it. So thanks for that, and here we go. So Karag Nightwolf emailed beforehand. He's dedicated. He said, I assume this would be for Josh, although I guess there are atheists that are pro-life too, or anti-abortion, whatever you want to call it. If you are anti-abortion, do you believe that once a woman conceives, she loses certain rights to her body and should be forced to remain pregnant and then regain those rights as soon as... By the way, I guess I should ask the debaters, do you guys want to field questions that are not pertinent to this debate? Because I don't know if this question is per se, and I usually try to defer to the debaters on that since they're the ones debating.
I say if they, if they asked it, I guess, but I'm not prepared to answer all of these, but I'll do my best.
Okay, so I will continue reading.
It's a little, yeah.
So, if you are anti-abortion, do you believe that once a woman conceives, she loses certain rights to her body and should be forced to remain pregnant and then regain those rights as soon as she gives birth? Do you believe there should, so it's 2 questions. Then also, I'll let you answer the first question and then I can go to the second one.
Well, I think that there is a natural law that forces us to act responsibly as people in how we are in reference to God. That there are certain ways, correct ways to live. This is what Thomas Reid was arguing against David Hume and others. I tried to argue against this in other ways, but this natural law, I do think, is what binds us. And for a good reference, and I showed one of the books in one of my early slides. It's by Daniel Robinson. Daniel Robinson. It's probably one of the most sophisticated books on natural law. It's called Praise and Blame, and it's very sophisticated. I hope everyone could get your hands on it.
Gotcha. And just had a super chat. Thanks so much from Bobby. We totally appreciate your super chat. And let me just, the scroll is moving fast on me, so I'm going to quick track it. Okay. Bobby, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. Is it Ilapagu? Forgive me if I got it wrong. As I said, I'm trying my best. But we appreciate your super chat, and he asks, or says, common sense, quote unquote, is often unreliable in math and science. So I think that would be to Josh.
Yeah. Well, common sense is we have to live by common sense, and usually it is extremely reliable. We trust our intuitions about space and time, um, about the external world. Um, we we trust those things are reliable, that our sense perceptions and our cognitive abilities are reliable. There's no reason to be skeptical of those things that hit our uh, hit our minds and how we interpret those things. You see, we're interpreting so much information, and by signal detection theory and pattern recognition from our eyes and hearing and so forth, we live according to an interpretive framework that has been shaped not just by evolution and the evolutionary history of our species, but by history and culture too. That's why uh, atheists have a lot to be thankful for, especially, uh, they have a lot, they have to be thankful to Christians and church history, I believe.
Gotcha. So thanks for that response. And one thing I forgot about, sorry about this, Caragnite Wolf. It was a two-parter question, and I asked the first one, and then I got distracted and went on to the next one after Josh answered the first one. So two-parter, this is the one, remember, on abortion, and he had said, do you believe there should be some form of punishment for men as well? So given that he says as well, I think he maybe inferred somewhere that you think there should be punishment for women, unless I'm
Well,
mistaken.
no, I think both people need to be mature, both the man and the woman, and they both need to take responsibility. Um, yeah, so both need to take responsibility.
Gotcha. So we have another question. This is from. You're coming in fast. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow right now. So next one is from Stickman Sam. Good to see ya. Long time viewer of the channel. So we're glad to see you, Stickman, a veteran. Question for Tom: does Tom consider the existence of nature to be a brute fact?
I would assume it is. Yes. So I'd say if like theists define their God that has these certain properties, and there's essentially two ways you can define it, either as a brute fact or a metaphysical necessity. The only difference between these two is you take a brute fact and say it couldn't be otherwise, then it's a metaphysical necessity. So I would probably just say it's one of those two. It's a brute fact or a metaphysical necessity. I don't know which, but either one's fine.
Gotcha. Next up, Ocean. He asks, what makes a mind necessary to be the first cause that isn't covered by naturalistic pantheism? I think that's for Josh.
Yeah, I don't really know what he's asking.
So,
Well, he's asking, like what you said earlier, why does your explanation rule out pantheism? Why do we need a mind? How does that exclude pantheism?
I well, in my view, I think I answered this. I think the Christian apologists of the 17th and 18th century, when they were arguing against Spinoza, they answered this. How can there be a miracle in the world with God already having a historical miracle in the world in history, when God already laid the foundations of the world? And I think they answered that. The way that I tried to answer that here was that there are signs of credibility. William Paley talked about this in his book, A View of the Evidences of Christianity, and his book on natural theology, about with the watchmaker example. That if there's a temporal universe, if it began to exist and it's not eternal, why is it not eternal? A pantheistic naturalistic hypothesis has no causal agency, and it doesn't have any potentiality to cause anything. So it would cause something from eternity, just like a natural law would. And remember my first, that slide, my first one, what was talked about a scientific explanation versus a personal explanation. We intuitively can bring about effects in the world. So I think that's analogous to this argument and shows quite plausibly that pantheism is falsified.
You bet. So next we will go on to a question from Karag Nightwolf. So thanks for your question, Karag. He said, question for Josh, does he believe that the resurrection is unfalsifiable? And if it's not falsifiable or unfalsifiable, how could it be falsified?
It could be falsified by showing the bones of Jesus. Now that would be very difficult. But in principle, at least, it's falsifiable. You have to look at the evidence. Science and history and the humanities, these are not the same thing. Just because theology or the arts don't have any predictions or predictive qualities to them, that doesn't mean that they're any less valuable. If we take history seriously, and in which I'm a history teacher, you have to look at the specific evidence, not just consider the general background evidence that miracles usually don't happen. Well, let's look at the specific evidence of of Joseph of Arimathea, the empty tomb, the post-mortem appearances, church history, etc., etc., etc. I like to frame it like a piece of a knight's chainmail. All of the links in the chainmail on a knight are the overall cumulative case for Christian theism. So the atheist can't just knock off one little link, because it's all held together by a multiplicity of evidences.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. And we just had a super chat. Thanks, Kent Hoven's CPA. We appreciate your super chat. It's not really Kent Hoven's
Wait,
CPA.
are you serious?
No.
It's a
No,
fake name.
no, not really. We have to say it every time that it's not really his CPA. So he says, TJ, is it? Oh, he's coming after you. Let's see. He's coming after Josh. He says, TJ, is it hard to get Josh's butt off of your foot? Ooh, Josh. Oh, Josh. Well, Josh, I mean, I guess you could respond if you like, since he's smack talking you.
You want me to respond?
Or if you want, but you don't have to. It's just a little smack talk. But if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Okay.
So just giving you a chance.
I'll respond. I could get a good look at a bad argument by sticking my head up David Hume's ass, but wouldn't you rather take his word for it?
You bet. Well, all right. There you go. Kent Hovind, CPA, and Josh. A new feud is born. Jerry Penna, thanks for your super chat. Just came in. Totally appreciate it. Jerry Penna said, the Christian just asserts an agent, but why an agent?
Thomas Reed, when he was replying to Hume in an inquiry into the human mind, he says we would know nothing about natural law if we didn't use by analogy active powers that we have to raise our hand or to bring about an effect in time. In fact, I don't know if you're aware of this, the philosopher G.E. Moore, in his, he wrote an article, A Defense of Common Sense, or something like it. It was one of my slides. And he said, you want me to prove that the external world exists and all this, and that I have active powers? Here, I raise my hand. Here, I raise my hand again. This is G.E. Moore responding to Bertrand Russell and many of the Vienna School of Atheists at that time.
Gotcha. Next up. Question for Tom. From Sickman Sam, if you believe that the universe comes from a natural, non-conscious cause, then how and why would it lead to the existence of conscious agents within it?
I could say that it has some property or some law in it that makes our kind of universe a necessary result, kind of like how theists claim that God has these properties that make our universe more likely to be created than any other kind of universe. I can say there's similar properties as a part of pantheism as undiscovered laws of its nature, which make our kind of universe more likely than other kinds of universes.
Can I have a 10-second rebuttal?
If it's okay with Tom.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, Limnes, he wasn't talking about that. He was saying, why does anything exist rather than just nothing at all? And the theist has a ready reply to that. The atheist does not.
Gotcha. Next up, Sheepwork. He says, assuming Christ is true, then wouldn't that be superior since we have eternity and atheism doesn't?
Like Pascal's wager.
My guess is something.
I would just go.
Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure he's asking something like Pascal's wager. So essentially, there could be an eternal afterlife that's natural. Like there could be souls that are natural that we just haven't discovered yet. There could be an afterlife that's natural that we haven't discovered yet. We can always make stuff up about things we can't verify. So I mean, there could be other kinds of God that would be even better than Jesus. So I mean, it would always be better if there's something that exists that rewards you for belief and gives you an afterlife. Of course, that's better. But it could be a God or God, because the Christian God sends lots of people to hell. So I would definitely think that's one of the not better options.
Can I ask you something, Tom?
Sure.
Do you want there to be a God?
Depends on the kind of God. If it's a really nice God, like what I would imagine, yes, I would want that. Christian God, not so much.
Gotcha. Next up, thanks very much for that question. And Adam Jubb has a question. Let's see. That's actually more of a comment. Ocean. Oh gosh, hold on a second. I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm a little bit behind on some of these. Rob C asks, Josh, how do you prove that Yahweh is God and not Allah?
Oh, you need to look at the historicity of the resurrection of the New Testament, of church history. You know, in the Quran, there seems to be a theme that God doesn't love everybody. In the Bible, there's an opposite view, in that we are saved by grace. I believe that's the only religion, indeed, if you could call it that, that says we're not saved by works, but we're saved by grace, or by faith, by grace through faith. I hope I'm not saying that backwards. Also, Islam denies the crucifixion of Jesus. So there's a multiplicity of reasons why I believe Christianity is true.
Gotcha.
Rather than Islam.
Next up, Anton Kruglik. Thanks for your question. For Tom, he says, naturalist pantheism on top of a determinism. It's actually more of a comment. Sorry. Trying to find the question in here. For TJump, isn't calling a potentially arbitrary property an arbitrary claim about it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think theists do about a God. They have these potentially arbitrary properties of God's nature, and they just assert them that they're necessary arbitrarily. And I'm just doing the same thing with pantheism.
Gotcha.
I'd like to respond to that.
As long as it's okay with Tom and extremely brief.
Sure, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, Thomas Reed, when he was responding, he said that we can know intuitively by our active powers that we don't exist necessarily. And by the way, common sense shows that to be true. Common sense also says that things that begin to exist aren't eternal, but they're caused by something that has a reason in themselves for why that effect exists.
Gotcha. You bet. Thanks so much. Next, let's see. Adam Jubb asks, Josh, are you using an old microphone on a windy beach?
I think I think I got my microphone in Afghanistan.
Gotcha. Taking a little trolling yourself there, Josh. So next up, Lucifer Almighty asks, question for Josh, why are you ignoring the eternal universe models?
Because the beginning of the universe falsifies that. The Vilenkin piece, Paul Davies. There's so many other people that falsify that. In his new book, Space and Time, Stephen Hawking says now almost everybody believes that the universe had a beginning at the Big Bang. Now, through conceptual analysis, we try to figure out what the properties of the cause behind the Big Bang that produced it must have. Since the universe is not eternal but finite, we have to argue back with philosophy. And I think philosophy shows that God does exist.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. So, next up, Skyout, by the way, see what you're saying in the chat, bro. Really no need for that. So, let's see. Next up, new question. So, 20 Faces asks, if God made the conscious decision to create the universe, then he did so because he wanted to or needed to. How can a perfect being have needs or wants that have to be fulfilled?
Okay, can you read that one more time, please?
You bet. He says, if God made the conscious decision to create the universe, then he did so because he wanted to or because he needed to. So how can a perfect being have needs or wants that have to be fulfilled?
That's a good question.
I believe God had a timeless intention from eternity to create a temporal effect because God is necessarily love, and that's one of he's all good. That's one of his qualities, and he wanted to see the maximum number of people down through the historical process to come to a loving relationship with him.
Gotcha. Next up, Correct Nightwolf, for Joshua, does he believe God is an all-knowing? God is all-knowing, and if he is all-knowing, what method did he use to determine that this is true? So I think he's asking, Josh, what method did you use to determine that God's all-knowing?
Did I use to determine it's true?
Yeah.
What method did I use?
Yeah, like what's your epistemic lever? Like what was the way in which you came to know that that's true?
Possible world semantics. I believe God is the greatest conceivable being with no room for potentiality. The pantheistic, naturalistic version of God doesn't have the potential to bring about an effect from eternity. If the cause was eternal, the effect would be eternal. But the evidence shows that the effect is not eternal. So I just argue backward. Since the effect is contingent, something must have brought it back that isn't contingent.
Gotcha. And last one, so sorry about that. We have got to wrap up pretty quick. But Skyout asked Tom if he wants to debate. So,
yes, the answer is always yes.
Oh snap! Well, it's on. That could be an exciting one. So, hopefully, we'll get to see these guys, and that would be a lot of fun. They're both enjoyable. Yeah, Josh.
We'll be able to wrap up. Can I say something to Tom before we leave?
Sure, go for it.
Well,
sure.
I really wanted to go over. I really wanted to go over. There were a lot of other arguments. I'm sorry we didn't have enough time. I think you're a nice person, and I had a lot of fun. I want everybody to tune in later on March 19th when I'm going to debate the top atheist in the world, in my opinion, Dr. Graham Oppie. And I think I have my hands full, but I'm confident.
It's definitely going to be exciting. Josh really did reach out to Graham Oppie and got a yes So that's going to be an exciting one, and I am encouraging Josh to read nothing but philosophy every waking moment from now until then, so that it's not, so that hopefully Dr. Oppie has someone that I don't know.
Can I,
it's hard
can I
to.
make one
It's,
prediction? Can I make one prediction?
yes.
I'm going to beat Dr. Graham Oppie.
Well, we look forward to the discussion, and I can tell you that Dr. Oppie has been extremely kind through email, and as everyone knows, he is a rigorous,
kind.
rigorous thinker, to say the least. So, with that, we also want to remind everybody we will have that Kent Hovind versus Cy Gart. Dr. Cy Gart will be debating him on whether or not science and religion are at war. That's an exciting one coming up. And then a couple of exciting ones that we do have coming up. We'll have Shannon Q on next Wednesday, and she'll be debating a gentleman named Volt. Then we will also have a Lion's Den next Saturday. We haven't done that for a while, so if you guys like Lion's Den, then you're like me, because they are awesome. And guess who's going to be in it? None other than these two gentlemen plus Astrolates. So both Joshua and Astrolates will be coming after TJump in the Lion's Den. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I would like Tom. I would like Tom if you could get Pine Creek and somebody else. I would like us, since we're in the Lion's Den, I would like us, me and Andrew, to be challenged.
Gotcha. We can do that. And it will be a blast. So, with that, thanks for being here, everybody. We'd encourage you, if it's your first time here, hit that subscribe button, as we plan on having a lot more future debates that are going to be a blast. This is actually, I just tell people all the time, I say that this is honestly such a fun time for me to be here. So, with that, I want to remind you, the debaters' links are in the description. See, like down there, I can like reach down and grab them. We're very excited that you can check them out at those convenient links. Moreover, we want to say, keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Have a good night, everybody.